I will return many times to the biblical text because much of what has been programmed from them is being used to program the masses nowadays, and so it is infiltrated in many of our customs. And so, returning to those beginnings narrated in the Bible, we find massive genocides ordered by that God who forgives sins with blood, torture, and death. According to those who have thoroughly studied that book, there are three occasions when, by direct order of that God, his followers caused a brutal bloodshed without being attacked. Some scholars, unable to face these facts and see in them what they are, that is, the need for blood of that God, which appears to feed on that terror, pain, and bloodshed infringed upon innocent people who couldn't defend themselves or do anything to deserve the carnage they were victims of. Those scholars, they conclude that there are actually two gods in the Bible, one in the New Testament and the other, the bad one, in the Old Testament. I don't know where they can see any difference because it is precisely that of the New Testament that lets their supposed son be tortured and crucified, and that to forgive the sins of others, that is, eating forbidden fruit from a tree. Although on several occasions it is also mentioned in that book the need to identify, to be able to distinguish the good from the bad, it seems that the followers of that God are not capable of doing so. So they do what they are told without considering the evil they do meanwhile. Perhaps because they believe that following the orders of a supposed superior being releases them from responsibility. The religions, practically all of them, have worked very well to create irresponsible people who do what they are told and whom, when they obey orders, consider that they acquire the quality of being good, whatever they do. Not surprisingly, many mothers will tell their children when they are sent to school, "Be good and obedient," as if being obedient was a good thing. When the distortion begins so early, it deepens into the bottom of the moral basis of the individual, and there it establishes a fold that will continue throughout his life. If they obey, they are good. Taking the next evolutionary step requires courage and sincerity. It is good if good things are done, and it is bad if bad things are done, even if whoever does them following someone else's orders. And being obedient is not a positive quality in itself if it doesn't carry with it a specification of what is done when it is obeyed. To illustrate that a little better, the perpetrators who execute the orders of the Italian Cosa Nostra gangsters, just for example, are very obedient. They do what their bosses tell them to do. But I wouldn't rate them as good, would you? This, which is pure and simple logic, is not recognized by 87% of the population of the world when they have to define whether what they are doing is good or bad. And although it sounds exaggerated, that percentage is extracted from experiments done by psychologists and universities. That percentage of world population does what they see, believes what they hear, and says what they are told, even when what they have before their eyes is not what they are told. In those cases, they will see what they are told, although what is in front of their eyes is a very different thing. And that says a lot and bad about the great majority of human beings. We see that brainwashing in our daily reality and the dissociation that this and other lack of orientation cause in most individuals when they show us images in the media referring to events that cannot be represented by those images. I refer here to acts of terror or false flags that have already become famous. The look of a person with a minimum of intelligence when they tell them what is supposedly happening or has happened, showing images that are not illustrating that at all, does not recognize anything that is being said on the TV screen. Very soon, they see the manipulation exerted by who has written the script and realization of the video, with which they try to terrorize the population. But the same doesn't happen with a population that don't possess the minimum intelligence to realize that what is put before their eyes is false, neither to elaborate a minimally objective judgment. Well, then, those who were able to carry out the massacres ordered by that God, despite having received some commandments that clearly specified that you would not kill, was one of them, didn't have enough understanding to even mention that to that God, thirsty for blood, that the orders he was giving were against his own commandments. How could that God send 10 rules of behavior which, on his own orders, his followers were led to violate? Was that God good or bad? How can any soldier wear a uniform and go to kill those who have done nothing, neither to him nor to his family or his country? Say that they are a believer, if you ask them, of a belief or religion that they breached as many times as they pulled the trigger. How can so many other believers do the opposite of what they are supposed to, violating the rules of the belief or religion they supposedly follow? Is this false? And how is it that so many rulers, when they are carrying out their electoral campaign, give thanks to God and use religious phrases to attract an electorate without intelligence, without sufficient criteria to see that the one who campaigns to win a political position has signed orders of occupation and assault against countries that have done nothing to deserve that, or will sign them? And to affirm that, you just have to look back to history. Everyone signs them. And in other countries without so much warlike vocation, what they breached is the electoral promises that leave those who voted with their mouths open to political impudence and their pocket emptied. And that happens again and again and again. The solutions against so much nonsense are also nonsense. People go out and expect that by organizing a little noise and being many, they will get what they have been denied and caused the public demonstration. And they continue to do the same despite the fact that when political power is coerced by such demonstrations, it only has one possibility to continue exercising the delegated power by public vote, and that is to continue the unpopular measure. Otherwise, giving up on imposing it would be a leave of authority. And the same is still being done, even though these actions or demonstrations don't solve anything. There is a tool in the hands of the citizen to exercise a change of orientation when a political measure is unpopular. But instead of intelligently organizing themselves, they all go together as cattle to assert the number, the quantity over the quality. And they have to endure the failure for not doing what would be effective. But that is also part of the brainwashing that is exercised from education, religion, and even from the public media, creating those actions that don't solve anything artificially and putting them in front of the noses of those who are sitting in front of the TV. Those who don't think for themselves would copy what they see others do. And so they are programmed to do that. That is, what is more convenient to those who hold the power of this planet, which is to say that they like for people to take useless actions and they educate them to do so. And by their deeds, you will know them, don't you? And speaking of facts, an image appeared about 7 years ago of the lynching of the US ambassador in Libya, Benghazi. And that episode is blamed on Hillary Clinton, despite the fact that the ambassador's own family has explained that they don't hold Hillary Clinton responsible, but the situation of that country. The photo showed a lot of individuals, but some of them posing very clearly for the photo. One of them pricking the ambassador with a stick that clearly showed that he had been mercilessly tortured. That photo was taken with perfect visibility. By who was taking it? Because the perpetrators of the lynching of the ambassador let him take those images that were to be seen all over the world to one of their own. That was a sample of the way in which those savages, without consciousness, transmit the horror that they are in charge of organizing, and that is the form of government preferred by the actual factual powers of this planet. And so, images provoking this effect are shown in all mass media. None of those individuals was Hillary Clinton. Those individuals were sure paid for that lynching, and I'm sure of that. And I'm sure that even if the accusation to Hillary Clinton of not having sent reinforcement were true, having increased the ambassador's security couldn't have prevented that. I just have to look at what happened to Gaddafi, Prime Minister of Libya, and the ease with which organized armed forces can overthrow whoever and execute anyone. Why is Hillary Clinton blamed and not Obama of that one? Most alleged failures of a state are attributed to its president, except when the faults and failures are of a woman in politics. Then, whoever the president is, it is a woman who will be the object of all criticism. Understand me that I don't consider Hillary Clinton neither better nor worse than any politician in those spheres of power. What I am ashamed for are of those double standards by which women in politics are dragged through the mud at the slightest opportunity. And that, when you see photos in which they are, for example, the two Bushes, Obama, and Bill Clinton, along with Hillary, it becomes absolutely unacceptable because the majority would criticize Hillary, although at her side, in the specific case I mentioned, she would have four mass genocide politicians whose military policies have claimed millions of innocent victims worldwide. But what I just mentioned is a context comment, but not what I was trying to identify from that photo that went around the world. Hillary Clinton wasn't there in Benghazi or in Libya, not even in Africa. To what extent the irresponsibility of those who do what they are told has been taken, whatever it is that they do, as to blame a politician in office with big headlines of what a gang of brutalized and trained perpetrators executed while visibly enjoying the torture and the pain infringed on that man. Did any of you ever see the faces of those animals with two legs and without conscience? The organization of the disorders and violence that forced immigration is spreading throughout the world, on my view, is a strategy designed and premeditated against which neither proportionate measures are being taken to avoid it, nor will they be taken. Without people who have no economic way out, it wouldn't be possible to gather so many cheap bullies and crime doers, and therefore the strategies of those who direct this carnival wouldn't be so easy to implement. So, fear, terror, insecurity make any group of people much easier to be manipulated and governed. I don't blame the politicians for murders they don't execute with their hands. I blame them for the situations that make it so miserable for so many that can only find those kinds of job to earn a living. And those economic situations are calculated, avoidable, and perpetuated on purpose. At that time, and according to the biblical account, people who didn't see the boss violate their own rules were busy executing orders that would provide them with a promised land. So no one asked the question about not killing. Today, people are kept busy trying to meet their needs so that they don't ask questions or do things that may bother the minions of the factual power in the planet. And that attitude is programmed in our minds since childhood. There is enough money in the world for each person in the planet to have a home, food, clothing, medical care, and education, and without the need to work. Work should be the help we would all be happy to provide in community services. All that can be said to me about hospitals, emergencies, cleaning services, care for the sick and the elderly, everything is resolved perfectly well in more primitive communities without working 8 hours a day to pay the mortgage. We have enough resources, technologies, and robotization to establish a way of life in which the lack of money couldn't be possible, and so preventing the creation of human monsters that do the dirty job of those who want to keep the world slave to work for life and for pennies. This situation is only convenient for few at the expense of the rest. And as I said, a population forced to work to get their sustenance and terrified is easier to handle, and that is why these photos are shown in all the media. So to have the effect they have. Be quiet and do what they told you. That's the effect. While we are busy paying for things that we should have warranted at birth. And you know what is most ironic in this state of affairs? That there are trillions of money that belongs to the population of this planet available, that is being blocked by the banking institutions under the orders of the factual power of this planet. We are not poor. This planet must have been organized so that we all receive profits from its wealth and its production. And there are collateral accounts that have been receiving the part that corresponds to us. That has remained hidden, and we have never been given any of it. Only a few have received a life of undeserved luxury while blocking what belongs to us, because poor and frightened we are easier to control, which is what the whole fraud is about. What an irony, isn't it? I'll say goodbye here for today, and I will return as soon as I can to share more things with you. Subscribe if you think you can benefit from some rational and critical exercise. So bye for now.